Good morning, everyone. Once a year, I do take some time to kind of put into context in my discernment, along with that of the parish council and the staff, on what is the state of our parish. And so today is the state of the parish address, if you will. It coincides with the publication of our accountability report, and so that was emailed out to everyone that we have the email for this week. There are hard copies available in the gathering space if you would like to take one of those. But today's the state of the parish, so congratulations. I do encourage you to take a look at the bulletin article that I wrote today, because it does relate to being awake or being ready or being prepared for Jesus' coming. And so what does that kind of look like? So there is some more theological reflection upon today's gospel reading in the bulletin article, but I do want to talk about a little bit the state of the parish. Now, there are lots of numbers in here, and it is a snapshot of the last fiscal year. So take a look at that, read through it, see some of the things that we are doing and all the generosity of our parish community. And in the past, I used to go into those numbers quite a bit in this address, but I don't. I'm going to instead look at an image or an idea that kind of connects to that discernment around what the state of our parish is. But that information is available inside the accountability report. Last year, we were coming out of the pandemic, and for the state of the parish, I talked about us hitting stride or setting a pace, right, of fulfilling our potential according to what God's called us to and the capacity we have to do God's will and to minister as a beacon of Christ's love in our world, in our community, and in each of our own lives. So we talked about setting that pace. And in that, I had said there's a couple of observations. One, that it's not a sprint, right? So we are in this for the long haul, and how do we establish systems and ministries and in a sustainable way for us to be able to continue on? Because in our enthusiasm coming out of the pandemic, we often wanted to do a bunch of stuff, but we needed to make sure that that was sustainable for us as a community. So we've been working through some of that this past year. And then I also had noted that you don't get the church that you want, you get the church that you are. And so to hit our pace and our stride wasn't anyone else's responsibility. Each of us were called to use our own gifts to help us to hit our stride. I also noted that not all of us individually are hitting our stride in life. That some of us maybe are dealing with the loss of loved ones, or we're dealing with addictions or other issues, and so we're struggling a little bit. But we as a community then are on that journey together, and as a whole parish family, we were hitting our stride. I think we continue to do that, right? We continue to be responding to God's grace and ministering and serving those who are in need in our community while we are doing that at our capacity or hitting our stride. There is a little bit of a context that I'd like to add to that, because we're not coming right out of a pandemic this year, but there are some things that we have been in transition for. Right? And so you may or may not know many of these things, but within our parish staff, we had been short-staffed in a couple positions for maintenance and in our business office, and so we have filled those positions with new employees, so that helps us to let things run more smoothly. We've also realigned some responsibilities among our staff to try to utilize people's gifts better for the things that they're able to do most effectively. We have also had a transition in our adult faith formation. So you saw Tammy Kessler is the director of our adult faith formation this morning up here. So she's doing new things. And then Joni Hendricks, who is our director of children's formation now. So she's doing new things. They are learning, and they're in the midst of that transition. And by the way, your pastor also got a new job this summer. So I'm learning, what does it mean to be the Vicar General for the Archdiocese? How does that affect my calendar and my availability in the parish community? And we're adjusting to some of those things, but it is a little destabilizing for our parish staff. Added to that, the Archdiocese of Louisville, this was needed, but the Archdiocese of Louisville is in the middle of a transition of all our accounting software to a new program. Everybody say, oh, wow. There is another team of staff that are also working on the programming and the software that does all of our record management, all of our facility scheduling. And by the way, that last fiscal year, we had over 3,700 events in our facilities. So that's important, right? And all of our ministry scheduling, right? Oh, wow, that's another big transition. Our staff is also responding to a transition because the Archdiocese, they had to, but the Archdiocese is moving to a different health insurance provider. So every employee is now working through those choices and those decisions and the anxiety that that produces, right? And I think even more than the pandemic, all those transitions, being in that liminal space where something has begun, but it hasn't come to full fruition or completion yet, those things are making our staff probably experience the most stress that they've experienced since I've been your pastor 9.5 years ago, right? That it's really a challenge. And I am grateful. Everybody say grateful. I am grateful that they haven't all jumped ship, right? That they are dedicated, that they care, they love God and they love you and they serve with their hearts and they are amazing. They are phenomenal as a staff, right? They have such a desire to be able to put their gifts to the use to help you learn also and grow also to serve others. For you to be empowered by the Holy Spirit to kind of do your own walk with Jesus, your own discipleship. And what that means is you give of yourself generously and sacrificially for the good of other people. And so I am grateful to our staff. They are amazing. And we don't have a strong and a wonderful parish because you have a fantastic pastor. It's because we have such a wonderful and fantastic staff. And so I know there are a number of staff members here, but if they could stand, if they're around. Tammy. Madison's in the back. Lynn Marshall's over here. So if we could give them a round of applause. John O'Brien, Birgit, Julie. Thank you very much. So we have a wonderful staff, and we've been in the midst of this transition, but one of the things that I think I am sensing, or we've discerned, is where our state of the parish is that you are thirsty. Is that there is a growing thirst in you for God and for a deeper experience of God, of the church, and of service to others. I get questions all the time about, well, Father, how can I fit? Where do I belong? What things can I do? What's the next step for me? What's the next step as I follow Jesus? And that sense is growing. And so I think that is a wonderful place to be. It's wonderful to experience lives that have been touched by grace that move people into an open desire to seek a deeper relationship with Jesus and a lived relationship with Jesus. So as we come here today, I would like to share, like I did last year, a couple of observations from my experience on how we navigate this growing thirst. Like the psalm said, Lord, or I'm thirsting for you, O Lord, right? How do we navigate that growing thirst? And so the first thing is from thirst that, I've been backpacking a number of times and I've been out on 7-day backpacking trips. And when you go on a 7-day backpacking trip, you can't carry enough water to quench your thirst for those whole 7 days. So you have to find a water source. In our thirst, we have to find a source that will quench that thirst, right? If we build it on anything other than Jesus and the gift of the Holy Spirit, we will go thirsty again, right? But we need to find Jesus. We need to focus on Jesus, to be disciples of Jesus, to engage with Jesus, to welcome Jesus into our lives, into our hearts. We can do a lot of things for Jesus, but it's important for us to do things with Jesus, right? That we need to walk with Him and work with Him and follow with Him. And so Jesus is that source for us to quench our thirst. Now the second thing is when you're out in the backcountry, it is important, it is good to find flowing water, life-giving water, living water, not stagnant water, right? It is fresher, it is purer, it is cleaner, it is better for you to have that flowing water. I know because when I was in survival training, to overcome my aversion, I stuck a canteen down in a stagnant pond and collected all that was there and purified it with iodine and drank lumpy and slimy water. Fresh water is better. Flowing water is better. So that flowing water for us is what is life-giving. There may be other sources for us, but we want to plug into the Holy Spirit, to the gift of the Spirit, the thing that brings life, not kind of tears down life, that brings hope and joy and peace, that consoles those who are grieving, proclaims liberty to the captives. We want the Spirit to be the place where we are refreshed by God. And then the other thing for water is that even if you have a flowing water in the backcountry, you need to purify that water. I know I had Giardia. It's not pleasant. So we have to purify our own hearts and minds as we seek to quench our thirst. We are conditioned by our society to engage every question with an opinion and with an agenda, right? When we come to God, it's God's agenda in our lives, not our own agenda that we're trying to institute or implement, right? We respond in grace to the surprises and the direction that God brings to us. So as we seek to go deeper, it's not about promoting our own agendas, but about receiving where God is calling us to do. We do all of this, as I've said, as disciples of Jesus, transforming lives, opening our hearts, changing our behavior and our actions according to the law of love of God and love of neighbor. And so we do that as disciples of Jesus. We engage with one another as disciples of Jesus. We serve the needs of the poor as disciples of Jesus. We come to worship God as disciples of Jesus. In our discernment, we are focusing on discipleship and our next best step with Jesus as the answer to our thirst. May we all listen for his voice. And as we seek to be quenched by God, as our soul thirsts for God, may we do that as disciples of Jesus.